Hi everyone. Hi Thomas. How are you?
Hi, Christel. I'm doing very well. How's everything going over there in Chile?
It's good. It's a little bit cold. We're waiting for summer to come around. How's everything in Austria?
Yeah, lucky us. We do experience quite some nice warm summer days these days, so things are all good. Would you mind introducing yourself as well as the topic to our audience today?
Sure. So my name is Christel and I'm a content marketer, content creator at Storyblok. And I joined Storyblok in August 2020. But Thomas, you joined a few weeks after, right?
Yeah, that's true. I joined Storyblok as VP of Marketing in September 2020 last year, and it's been quite an exciting journey so far on the marketing side of things for Storyblok and how we use Storyblok ourselves. Could you give us a quick overview on what does that actually mean when we talk about how Storyblok uses Storyblok?
Sure. Well, actually, today we'll be showing you how we use Storyblok and explore the milestones we learned over the year to organize content for the world on the site that you see today at storyblok.com. What that means is, through the spaces that we primarily use heavily in our day to day, which is the dashboard for the Storyblok application, our partner portal, and also the dedicated space, the visual editor to add content to our V2 landing page. But Thomas, who uses Storyblok apart from us on a day-to-day basis to create Storyblok?
Yeah, that's a really good one because it has changed quite a lot in the past year. So I think when Crystal and me joined the team mid last year, we were standing around 20 employees working for Storyblok. But the tremendous growth we've seen in the past year basically has led to a company growth of right now around 50 employees working full time for Storyblok. And since we like to drink our own champagne, most of those users are also users of our own CMS for running dedicated topics, responsibilities, and tasks for their respective field. So not only on the development and developer experience side, where we have Christian working on all things development for storyblok.com and all related spaces, but also on the design team, we have Nicola and Sophia working on the graphic design as well as user experience and help us a lot as business users in creating great experiences on our websites. On the business side, we do not only have the marketing team, but also the sales partner and operations team who use Storyblok day to day for their respective jobs, be it, for example, a new job opening that will be put live on our website by one of our operations colleagues. So yeah, that's really the topic on who uses Storyblok at Storyblok. But back to the beginnings, Crystal, what was your first impression when you started to work with Storyblok?
I mean, that's a great question. I mean, my first impressions, at least with Storyblok, is that everything is logically categorized to make your life easier. In that, everything was set in folders, page types, and into each page that could then be easily edited and organized as you went along your content editing experience. And with the component blocks, you could then easily move them around in your page, and there's no way you could literally break anything since it's designed not to be broken. So hence brownie points for being very user friendly and for both marketers and developers alike. Um, but one of the best things, I from the top of my head, that you could see things in real time as you went along your edits. Without having to publish it first live before having seeing the mistake that you've made, for example, and having come from a monolithic background before, that's really reassuring that you can see what you're doing before publishing out to the world and having the horror of seeing a mistake on your site while it's live. But yeah, no, what was your impression, Thomas?
Yeah, so back in 2020, we were already looking at quite a deep and broad list of pages. So from a page architecture perspective, one of our colleagues, Lizzie, created this sort of notepad last year on all all the different types of pages, all the different areas that already sit on storyblok.com. So back then, that was quite an overwhelming first impression, I would say, with having all those pages, be it on the changelog, be it on the documentation side, be it on the tutorial side of things, be it landing pages. So that was sort of my first impression, really, when I first started to use Storyblok as a CMS for our own website. But what about some numbers, Christel? What happened since then?
I mean, as you can see, we've grown over the year, and not just site visitors from August 2020 to August 2021, but also internally in our content creation from 626 stories to, 1,124 stories between August 2020 to August 2021. And the nice thing for us is that, we grow as a team, and we grow as, as content creators in creating new content assets and pieces. And we also grow in site visitors as a consequence. Um, and when we first started at Storyblok, a blog folder existed in our Storyblok app that held all our blog articles and pages we would eventually publish. So that, one of the main sources of our content creation, and ultimately the rise in the stories and pages published in our blog, where we write the majority of our content there alongside partner, developer, and talent content, is essentially what drives forwards, our marketing experience in Storyblok. And when we first launched our blog articles at the end of August 2020, at the time, the articles were hosted on their specific URLs. And what that meant is that essentially you had to look up each title through Storyblok's search bar, and they weren't necessarily hosted in a central place. So while they were underneath, inside the Storyblok app folder system, we needed to create a central site where all the blog articles could appear together. So thus came about this creation and ideation of how we wanted our blog to look like when we started compiling our ideas on Figma as a marketing team. As a big disclaimer, though, we do not have an integration with Figma just yet. But as a marketing team, this was an ideal place for us to ideate, create mock-ups, and also share with the other teams for feedback. So we came up with different versions, seeing ways we could, integrate existing components with new ones, and also, ultimately we created this design that you see here. And, with the coordination and the help of our amazing developer and design team, we turned around the mock-up to the final product within 2 weeks, and we launched, this site. So when it comes down to actually creating a blog article, we start from an idea, whether it is one left by our team, if we're brainstorming around a go-to-market strategy, whether that is, on Notion or in Slack in our marketing channel. We essentially work inside Notion with a Kanban board, and following the Kanban process, that helps us identify the next articles we want to push along our workflow. And with that, we assign these articles amongst my colleague Siavash or myself, and we start writing in a Google Doc because it's just the most accessible and easiest tool for us, especially when we share the document for feedback and review with Thomas. So from there, we move to another Kanban board inside Notion that acts as the design task board for our design team to essentially help us create OG images, preview images, and also article images. And when the design is done, they help upload these assets for us into the page on Storyblok, while we input and convert our text from a Google Doc into a Markdown, which is an add-on that we use that we then copy and paste that over into Storyblok. And this streamlined, everything for us, as you simply have a direct click from, the Google Doc to Storyblok, compared to having to copy and paste it into another software to generate, the Markdown text, and then paste it again into the app. So when we bring all these components together, at this point with the copy and the images into Storyblok, we make sure to fill in the preview and meta descriptions. And then once everything is ready, we just hit publish. So essentially our content timeline is, it takes a week and a half total from start to finish. And, that's quite amazing, frankly. And, so one of the main factors behind actually our content is search engine optimization, or SEO. Thomas, do you want to talk about it?
Thanks, Christel, for giving us such an insight on the blog creation process. Looking at content for the topic of SEO, when it comes to how we use Storyblok at Storyblok, I think that the first big disclaimer there is that as a headless CMS in general, the headless nature is, my main requirement for a CMS really is that a CMS should never get in the way of the content creation and content distribution process. So what do I mean by that? At Storyblok, I think it's really important to give our content editors the freedom to create great content and distribute that on our website and other channels, by giving them the editing tool, but also giving them the SEO settings and toolings they need to publish new things. So the first thing that really comes to my mind when we talk about SEO settings and how we at Storyblok have custom SEO settings in place, I would look at things like the possibility to index and no index certain pages. So by that, any story really can either be indexed or can be set to no indexed by our marketing team. And that really allows us to exclude pages from the Google index and our own sitemap, or in case we do want pages to be indexed, they will be indexed by this simple setting. Besides that, we also have a meta tab within our stories that really allows anybody to easily adjust the meta title and meta description, add open graph images, titles and descriptions as well, given some length recommendations. And with that said, one of the simplest but yet super powerful settings within Storyblok is really the possibility to change a page slug and edit alternative versions. So with that said, I think we're looking at the basic SEO settings that we have in place. Just as a disclaimer, your SEO settings within your Storyblok CMS might be similar, but also could be super different, because with Storyblok, any developer can really go ahead and adjust and create custom SEO settings based on your own needs. So that's just as a big disclaimer. When we talk about search engine optimization and content, one big topic really is images, right? And how we use visuals for Storyblok.com. Besides the general message that all images that are hosted and run on Storyblok are really optimized by default, I think we pay quite close attention to the topic of image resizing to really find a good balancing act between SEO as well as image quality. And with that said, we also give editors the possibility to upload images that will be preloaded before the real original image is loaded. So that's just as a backup if you need to preload a certain image. Besides that, we also have the setting, which is basically a simple checkbox in place that give an editor the possibility to define if an image is set and shown above the fold or if it's shown below the fold. Why is this relevant for SEO purposes? Because the image above setting defines if an image is loaded through lazy loading or not. So if you would check that, all the above the fold images are not lazy loaded and everything else is lazy loaded. So these are just some basic image optimization capabilities and add-ons that we have in place to really make sure that we have a great website performance and a great user experience as well. Let's talk quickly about integrations and our tracking setup, because usually a CMS or a website is not a standalone product, is not something that just sits there as a standalone thing, but also integrates deeply with other systems. The same thing is true for Storyblok.com when it comes to integrations. And here I just wanted to quickly give you a few insights and inputs on how we integrate certain toolings with Storyblok.com and our own website. When we look at some internal workflows, I think that the simplest but yet super cool thing for me is our Slack integration, because with the Slack integration, the marketing team is directly notified if, for example, a new case study project has been submitted on our website. So what does it mean? It means if you go to our websites, if you submit a new project through the case study form, we will be notified directly inside our marketing Slack channel about this new thing. And this can be then picked up by one of our colleagues and be processed further in our internal workflow. The other thing to mention is maybe the Twitter connection, which basically means if a new changelog entry is published on our website, storyblok.com, we automatically push that content also as a tweet on our status Twitter account. So therefore, our social media manager doesn't need to create a new tweet about that manually, but it just goes out fully automatically once a new changelog is been published. On the analytics side of things, maybe worth to mentioning is we are quite heavy users and fans of Segment. So all of our analytics and tracking is funneled through Segment as the main platform, be it Google Ads, Google Analytics, LinkedIn tracking, and so on and so forth. On the CRM side, we use Salesforce quite a lot. So any form submit, any form that is really been sent from our website, for example, our contact us form will be sent to our main CRM Salesforce. In addition to that, we use MailChimp for our newsletters. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to our developer marketing newsletter, please check them out at storyblok.com/newsletter, just as a little self-promotion right here. We do that right now through MailChimp. So the whole process is automated through the connection between Storyblok and MailChimp. That's on the integration and setup side of things. Just real quick, how does that look like as an editor, as a user of our own CMS? We do have various fields in place, for example, for event tracking. So if we have different conversion elements or form submits that we want to track, we can easily add those tracking pixels and snippets within custom fields within Storyblok. In addition to that, we also have custom fields for event tracking. So for example, if you think about Google Analytics events and goals, our editors can really go in and define those event labels per form on a custom basis. Same thing goes for the whole lead capture connection with Salesforce. So yeah, that's all on the tracking setup. How about localization? How do we do that, Christel?
Yeah, I mean, localization is an essential part of our content marketing. And whether you're looking to tap into new markets and audiences or supply a new language, for an already existing audience, from an editor's perspective in Storyblok, we usually have the English version as a basis to use. And that's the standard in all of our articles. But as we continue to grow, we want to speak our audience's language. And usually, we put the English version as a standard, and we put that through a translation system or check with one of our own native language speakers to help us out with the translations. And once that's done, we use the same procedure of converting that document to a markdown as we would in a blog article, and then use Storyblok's field level localization tool. So inside the Storyblok app, you can simply choose a language from a drop-down menu, tick the box to translate, and then paste your translation there. And this creates a field level translation that exists in the same file, but also under a different tab or language. You can then create a unique URL for that translation that can then be accessed or found via Google search engines, but also for those specific markets. So as is the case with our Italian version of Headless CMS explained in 5 effective minutes that you can find if you're searching for it in Italian. But hand in hand with those marketing efforts comes also cross-team collaboration with user rights and content workflows in Storyblok. Thomas, I believe you're going to be talking about that.
Yeah, let's have a quick look on the whole topic. As some of you who might use Storyblok regularly know, Storyblok as a CMS is super flexible in setting up your own user rights and defining controls on who can access what. So besides the default and more standard user rights and user roles that we use at Storyblok, I think it's worth highlighting that we have some user roles in place that are custom or fully customized, like the proofreader user role. So what does that mean? We do have people who just use our own CMS for proofreading content. So for example, on the tutorials. So these proofreaders will have a dedicated specific user role within Storyblok that only allows them to, for example, save content within a specific folder. And in addition to that, we not only limit, for example, the proofreader role to what they can do and which folders they can work with, but also with components they can view and adjust. So for example, a proofreader that is just proofreading copy doesn't need access to a code component that has code snippets in place. So with Storyblok's user right management, that's super easy to set up and adjust. And we really like to use that because therefore we make sure that people only have access for the things they're responsible for. The same thing goes for the jobs area. It uses at Storyblok, for example, which means that if you go to storyblok.com/jobs, our operations team, who is responsible for adding new job postings, has only access to that jobs folder. So that's really user rights in a quick nutshell. There's so much more to be explained. And if you have any question on that, please always reach out to us. But last but not least, I think we've mentioned the main things on what makes our life easier at Storyblok. But Christel, I'm sure there's so many small things that help us help you on a really day-by-day basis. Can you share some with us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, from the top of my head is image captioning. You know, like when we first started as marketers back in August 2020, building the blog page and creating articles, we found a feature that we really wanted, which was the ability to center our text underneath images or essentially captions. And for the first few months, at least, you know, we used a markdown component underneath the image and used the HTML code like bracket center to center the text manually underneath our image component block. And over time, you know, that feature was created for us to be able to easily annotate and caption our images. So, you know, it's amazing to see that. What about you, Thomas?
Yeah, I think that the main or the first small thing that comes to my mind is the possibility to access our CMS on my mobile phone in a mobile browser, which I wasn't really expecting in full honesty, because if I come from a monolithic background as well, and usually the mobile experience for editors is quite limiting sometimes, but I was really surprised on how easy it is to, for example, change a quick copy on my mobile browser, or fix a small typo, for example, save that, or either publish that directly. So yeah, I think that's the biggest small thing that makes my life easier at Storyblok. But last but not least, what's on the horizon? What's next for the marketing team at Storyblok?
I'm glad you asked. I mean, we constantly push the boundaries at Storyblok for content, you know, be it LED lights, Alexa skills, or more general things like personalization or A/B testing. And that would be useful when we continue to grow, you know, continuously into new markets, new audiences, and even new languages. So as marketers, we continuously want to experiment to fit these technologies and possibilities into our day-to-day content experiences.
Awesome. So I guess last but not least, where should people go to learn more about you and me?
If you want to learn more about Thomas or myself, you can contact us via our emails to learn more about our day-to-day lives in Storyblok. Our marketing can help your marketing efforts also with Storyblok. And if you want to drop us a line for a coffee chat to talk about all things headless CMS or marketing, feel free also.
Awesome. It was great talking to you today, Christel. Have a good
Great
one.
talking to you too. Bye.
Bye.